Next Gen
What's going on,
fam.
y'all?
Happy Tuesday. Good morning, team. We are live. We're out here. J-Man, how you feeling?
Y'all, teams make it all happen. Dylan and I get to come on stage and act funny, do our thing, but it is the teams that make everything happen. So shout out to Jonathan and Susan on the Spartan team for getting Joe here and making this happen. Shout out to Andrew and Jenna, who were just schmoozing in the backstage. Jenna makes this all happen, and Andrew just signed himself up for the death race, which you'll learn more about hopefully in our interview today. So teams are making it happen, and we're grateful to our team, the Spartan team, everybody on the team who's tuning in.
Y'all, this is one that everybody's been waiting for. I got to give another shout out. You can see in this photo here, that's the big sis, head of product, and her brother right there getting ready for their first Spartan race back in 2016. It's been a few since then, and we've got the man behind the scenes making it all happen live today on Momentum Audio. We are so grateful. And with that, JL, I think we got to dive in.
We got to bring him on. We have Malachi running triathlons, training for his Spartan race. Jayreen always working out, always doing her thing. Let's bring him on. Joe De Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan. It's the world's leading endurance, sports, and wellness brand. He has been an entrepreneur in his prehistory. We want to talk about Spartan. We want to talk about the motivational mindset that he brings to the table. And we're just really grateful to have him here. So, Jenna, let's bring on Joe De Sena, founder, CEO of Spartan. Joe, what's going on?
What's going on? You guys are full of energy. I love it.
Joe, we're just getting ready and getting warmed up, but we got to dive right in because the number one question that I've got for you that Justin, our whole audience wants to know, can you walk us through the first hour of your day? You wake up 4:45 a.m. and then what?
First thing I'm doing is I'm drinking some water, room temperature. I'm mixing some apple cider vinegar with it, chugging that, trying to resist the temptation to get on email and knock out some emails or phone calls, believe it or not, because we have offices all over the world. And then getting right to my workout, want to get my sweat on, get that workout done, turn on the music. I've got one of those boom speakers in the house. I get music going because now I got to wake the whole house up around 5:45. My wife wants to kill me. Doors start slamming. My daughter's screaming at me. But I start ripping people out of bed. It's a fight every day. It never gets easier. They all hate me for it. And then I work out with them. And then when that workout's done, I'm jumping in an ice cold shower. Doesn't matter how many times you do it. It always sucks. And get out of the shower, get dressed, and I am headed to work. I haven't eaten yet because I try to eat 9 a.m. every morning. So I've gotten, 4 hours of working out and cold showers in before I ate my first meal. I'm at the office here and I'm dealing with the bullshit of owning a business.
Joe, thank you for giving us the tactics on it. We really appreciate it. And because so many times I think we hear from folks who are out there doing their things. We're like, no, tell us what you're doing, because that is the proof of okay, how we can emulate and learn. Of course, everybody has to make it work for themselves. So super glad we're getting tactical on this. Joe, we want to paint the picture of the story of Joe De Sena and Spartan. And I want to start at Vermont. I want to start at the organic farm, the bed and breakfast, where you're developing your passion for ultramarathons, for endurance races. So take us back to that time in your life. Give us some context of what's going down when the idea for Spartan is starting to be.
Well, I'm going to go way back, right? I'm going to go back to the early 70s. If anybody saw the movie Goodfellas, I don't know if you guys are too young to see the movie Goodfellas, but I grew up ground zero for Goodfellas, so it was very Italian, very organized crime-ish. You'd wake up I wake up in the morning and my garage was a box of like 500 pairs of leather ski gloves. We don't ski. How did they end up in the garage, right? And why are they now being sold? So that was the environment, right? Conversations were about cannolis and pizza and cement and jail. And my mom finds yoga, meditation. She bumps into a yogi at a health food store, probably the only health food store on the entire East Coast at that time. The yogi had just flown in from India, landed at JFK, and he convinces her somehow over a half-hour conversation that being vegan, practicing meditation, doing yoga is much healthier than the way we've been living. And she comes home and she throws out all the sausage and peppers and everything in our fridge and attempts to turn the ship around. My parents end up divorced. Everybody calls her a screwball, including my sister and I. And And in the process, over the next few years, she introduces me and my sister to a race called the Transcendence Run. This is probably late 70s, early 80s. It's a 3,100-mile race in Queens, still exists today, around a 1-mile loop. So you just run in circles for 50 or 60 days. About 8 people a year sign up for this thing. It was put on by another Indian guru. And his reason was to show how powerful the body is if you have a strong mind. And so anyway, I was exposed to all that stuff, but I wanted to be normal, right? I wanted to eat some meat. I wanted to make my way to Wall Street, go to college, make some money. I wasn't ready to sit down and have beads around my neck and start chanting. And then I was on Wall Street. I was making money, but it didn't feel as good as I thought it would feel. And before you know it, I ended up in a hot yoga class while I was on Wall Street. And then it occurred to me that I could do more business on Wall Street if I started taking my clients to hot yoga classes. And I started taking my clients to do these crazy adventure races, stuff my mom introduced me to. And if I brought in a raw fruit and vegetable expert to talk at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and Merrill Lynch, it would help. And so I branded myself kind of the way my mom did, as this, vegan, meditating, adventure racing, crazy person. But it worked. I did more business. I got healthier. I got a bunch of people healthy. So much so that I sold that business. I built a business on Wall Street. I sold it. And I bought a farm, met my wife, bought a farm in Vermont, started raising chickens, pigs, goats, Scottish Highland cows, and children. And then I was like, I want to put this on for a living. I want to put on races. So I started putting on events. But the same way my mom had a tough time convincing people to do yoga, I had a tough time convincing people to run 20, 30, 40, 300 miles. They just didn't want to do it. And so I struggled. I used to have to lie to people and tell them they were coming. We were having a barbecue up on the farm. Why don't they come up? But they didn't know they were the ones being barbecued. So I lied for a while. I recruited people, lost a lot of money. Still enjoyed doing it. Sorry, there's a very long-winded answer. And in 2010, after the financial crisis, after 10 years of putting on races on the farm and within the tri-state area, I finally said, I'm done. I got to pack it in. This is completely irresponsible. I lost a bunch of money in the collapse that had occurred in 2009. And then I said, well, maybe I'll give it one more go because I don't like to quit. I'll change the name of the races I'm putting on. Back then, I used to call them peak races. I'll change the name. I'll change the format. It'll be more like military-inspired obstacle racing. I'll change the distance. So instead of like 300-mile races and 3-day races, 4-day races, there'll be 3 miles, 8 miles, 13 miles. I brought in some of my friends and I said, let's give it a shot. And it worked. Right time, right place, right name. A bunch of folks, veterans are coming back from the war overseas. CrossFit is becoming more popular. Facebook is doing a hockey stick. Just right time. And, 700 people showed up for a race. 1,500 people showed up. 3,000. Fuck it. Let's go. Well, I'll put a race on in Eastern Europe. Put a race on in Canada. Put a race on in London. So I went for broke, literally. Put races on all over the world, faster than I should have, faster than I could have. And ended up in a big fight with Tough Mudder. Tough Mudder was my rival that literally, it would, from the moment I woke up every morning to the moment I went to bed, I had to beat Tough Mudder. That was my goal. How do I crush these guys? If they're putting on a race somewhere, we're going to put on a race in the same place. So I'm going to fly a plane over their events. They're going to fly planes over my events saying, now you're ready for a real, we were at each other's throats. It got so bad at the peak of our Cold War between Tough Mudder and Spartan. I heard they were coming to China, and we were already in China. And I said, whatever they do any day, you put a race on the same day for free. Whatever they announce, we do the same day for free. And I think we broke them. and they left China. And then surprisingly, the founders, I guess, made a few financial mistakes. Even though I wanted to win, I kind of feel bad. I honestly feel bad, but they made some mistakes and they nearly lost the company. So we ended up buying them right before COVID hit, which was the worst possible timing. Maybe the universe was getting even with me. And now we got COVID and Spartan, and we're coming out of COVID. That long, Tough Mudder and Spartan in a lingering COVID environment around the world. But that was a very long-winded answer. I apologize, but that's the whole story in a nutshell.
Joe, no apologies necessary. The passion is so clear. You're exuding that energy, just talking about your baby here. So much to unpack. Our next gen fam, they recognize that Joe made relationships number one, dating back to the Wall Street days. And then maybe, with a slight lie on the barbecuing side, he is there for the people, taking them to hot yoga, right? Giving. Do I want to stay on that period though, those 10 to 15 years before Spartan was cool? Justin and I joke all the time. We've been doing this almost a decade. The first, let's say 95% of that time, everybody looked at us, the two entrepreneurial kids in college, like we were crazy. But now, next gen, kind of cool. We got t-shirts. Joe De Sena is on the podcast, right? What's up, man? He's next gen in a nutshell right there. Talk to us, Joe, about the mindset that you were able to promote yourself in getting through that hardship, that period, and any lessons that you're teaching the young ones out here who can take that and run with it.
Well, Spartan, it's good for my son just showed up. Charlie just showed up. I saw him working outside my office door, so I waved him in. But good for Charlie to hear. Charlie was born, when were you born?
2007.
He was born in 2007, so he was born pre-Spartan. And but he was born post-death race. He was about 2 or 3 years old when we were full swing with our death races up in Vermont. But we lost money for 15 years. We lost money from that first race all the way through to 2015. So much so that you could see Charlie doesn't look too healthy because we didn't have milk for him. We didn't have food for him. This guy barely hung on, right? I don't know how I did it. I don't know how an entrepreneur does it when it just sucks, when you're losing money. But I think part of it for me was not wanting to lose to Tough Mudder. Part of it was not wanting to lose for my family. Part of it was not wanting to lose for all the people, reputationally that I had told I was doing this. So you hang on, and somehow you beg, you borrow, you steal, you do what you have to do. And you got a gut feeling that it's going to work. And you're doing good. I knew I was doing good work because of the transformational stories. So I just hung on. I can't even tell you how many times it was like touch and go. We're going to be out of business tomorrow. And then we made it another day. And
Joe, it's super inspiring, I think, to hear, because a lot of the times, and Charlie, in our generation, we're hearing the big stories of it's great, but nobody likes to gloss over, I think what happened. And I think one of the things you embodied in that time period is something that Spartan embodies every day, the Spartan paradox of committing to something and that forcing you to do the work. I want to have you unpack this for our audience because Dylan and I are such big believers in this. So hearing that you've coined it, you've got it, and you understand it. So help us understand, what is the Spartan paradox and why does it work?
When I started racing myself, Charlie might not know the term Spartan paradox, so this would be good for him to hear it. But when I was racing myself back in the mid 90s, early 2000s, it's very hard to get in shape. And I never really understood why a boxer, like why Mike Tyson, for example, would get out of shape and then get in shape for a fight. And Conor McGregor, any of them, right? Never really made sense. Why wouldn't you just always stay in shape? That's your profession. That's your business. And so I quickly learned that getting in shape was a nightmare. Once you were in shape, you could perform at an event. So why don't I just keep signing up for races continuously, like a boxer that always has a fight on the calendar, and I'll always be in shape. And so I just raced nonstop, sometimes weekend after weekend after weekend, so that selfishly, and just maybe because I was lazy deep down, I didn't want to have to go back in the gym and get back in shape after being out of shape. So the Spartan paradox, basically, you know, I've had so many people say to me, well, I'll do that when I get in shape. I'll do that when. And I'm like, you're an idiot. Actually, what you do is sign up first. Then it pulls you like a locomotive then you start going to bed early. Then you start waking up early. Then you start training. You eating, like all those things happen once you sign up. You don't do all those things first. If you did all those things first, all of us would be in great shape, but we're not. The country's a disaster because deep down inside, we are lazy creatures. That's why this thing it's so addictive. Oh, go get them. I got a new phone case. I got to show you guys. I came up with. But anyway,
I love it, Joe. On that note, you talk all the time about how that consistent hard work, that patience, while rare, if you can embody that, success is inevitable, right? There are hardly a few people who have that hard work, that mentality, the mindset behind it, that don't find what they're chasing. And on that note, I want to ask you about loss aversion, because you talk about it all the time in relation to Spartan, to what you are building, that we're motivated by loss aversion. Can you unpack that for our audience and talk about how you have literally built that in to what you're doing now? And there's the phone case for our live viewers.
Is that awesome?
That is too funny.
30 pounds. So imagine you got to take a call and you got to hold it. And it's purposely designed so you can't get earphones in, right? So you have to hold it to your head. And it's strange in the airport.
Christian, Sam, for those who are not watching this live or listening to this later, Joe's holding up basically what looks like a massive kettlebell with a phone built in to the middle of it. So you want to take a phone call, you are lifting up this massive thing to make it happen.
Isn't that great?
Amazing.
You got the next big thing.
Some branding on that.
All right, I'm sorry. Repeat the question. I got so focused on my new invention here.
Well, we're talking about loss aversion in the cell phone world, but I want to hear from the man himself on what you think motivates us as human beings and how loss aversion plays into really your marketing and everything you're building at Spartan.
Well, I think we are wired to avoid discomfort. I don't know if I'm going to answer the question well, but we're wired to avoid discomfort, and we're wired that way because it kept us alive, right? So we don't fall off a cliff, we don't freeze to death at night, and so all day, every day, we've got these little cues, these little things going off in our head that say, you know, we should probably have a cup of coffee before we do our workout. Oh, we should check the news. Oh, we should do this. We should do that. Really, all your brain is doing is trying to get you to avoid doing the work. The sooner we can understand that, the sooner we could counteract it. Like I know this morning when I got up, the routine I described to you, gentlemen, I was going to do, and my mind was saying, well, you should really, check this on your phone or whatever. And it's like, no, you idiot. That's just you trying to get out of the work. Let's go. And literally what happens, and I know it happens to everybody listening, everybody watching, it happens to you too, all you got to do is just start moving, right? If you just start moving and then you gain a little momentum, it doesn't tend to stop. So I don't know if I answered the question well regarding loss aversion, but for me, it's the general understanding that our minds all day, every day, are trying to get us to avoid the work. And the sooner we can accept that, we could start counteracting that. We could start doing the work. And literally, a guy taught me we should name our brains. So I don't know what you guys want to name your brains, but let's say mine was Susie. I got my brain's name is Susie, right? And Susie's telling me, oh, no, don't do that. Check this, go. And it's like, Susie, we already discussed this. No, we're going on the treadmill. We're going outside. We're going, right? Oh, the best one Susie comes up with is when the weather is bad. Like, are you kidding me? There's no bad weather, Susie. There's only bad gear, right? There's bad mindset. There's no bad weather. I actually like bad weather. I feel alive. So again, I don't know if I covered what you wanted to cover on loss aversion, but that's the way I think about it.
Joe, I absolutely love this tip of naming your brain. I think that's ingenious. Dylan and I talk to a lot of audiences, and we, I think, share a belief, an idea that you have to use the body to get as much as you can to the mind, particularly in the morning when you're having all those signals. But I think naming the brain is just an extra tip that I have not heard before. I think that's gold. I'm gonna pocket that one. Who gets the credit? Did you learn that from someone?
I learned it from someone, a guy out of Microsoft, and I like it because otherwise you kind of feel like you're just talking to yourself, whatever. But at least this way I'm talking to Susie. And Susie sometimes will tell me in the morning, like some bad news, like, hey, we're going to have a tough time with payroll or whatever. And it's like, all right, Susie, I got it. Here's what I'm going to work on that. And then, an hour later, Susie brings it up again. When it's like, Susie, we already went through this an hour ago. Why we already got it. We got a solution. Why are we, because, and your brain, you'll get trapped in that around and around and around dealing with the same problem over and over again. But when you name your brain, just have to discuss it once. Hang on, I want to show you something else we invented.
That's gold. I think that's gold.
Getting in the lab, I love it.
A lot of stuff I create in this office here that I'm in, it dies in the office because my team thinks I'm an idiot with some of these things. I want to create, the elf on the shelf.
Yeah.
I want to create a Spartan on the shelf. So I don't know if you can see this little guy here. That's right. It's not a crazy idea because it says 30 burpees, right? Because these little vests that I came up with, right? If you guys ever see an elf on the shelf?
Yeah.
Not one wearing a 30 burpee vest though.
Right? So I don't know, the vest doesn't fit my guy here. But the point is, kids are playing around with these elves on the shelves. Why not have one that's giving them a workout every morning, right? As opposed to like candy and popcorn, whatever the hell it is, you do with a regular elf on the shelf. So genius, my team didn't really like
it. Shout out to Carola Jane, who used to be the CMO. We got to meet and hang out. Maybe that was, her doing there, but I'm sure many new ideas on the horizon. 30 push-ups there, right there.
Yeah. I thought it was amazing. Yeah.
Joe, on that note, you've got a lot of ideas going on in this lab, in the larger company. You clearly are someone who has the innovation gene, the entrepreneurial bug, if you will. But I want to ask you, do you think that entrepreneurs are born, made, can be developed? Where do you shake out for all of our next-gen entrepreneurs who are listening in and maybe don't have, let's say, the ideas popping left and right? Can that be cultivated?
My dad used to say, my dad was an ultra entrepreneur. My dad used to say, you got to have the stomach for it. And I didn't really understand what that means over all those years of him saying it. But I think it could be developed. I think anybody, we are all pretty wild creatures. We learn helplessness because of the environment we live in today. But imagine growing up in the 1700s or 1600s, right? Like you had to survive. You figured it out. And I think just surviving back then, just being able to take a horse and carriage with grandma and wife and maybe new baby up and over the Rockies, right? Like that's like building a business. And everybody did it. That's just the way we live. And so deep down inside, we've got those capabilities to get over the Rockies, even when the wagon wheel breaks and grandma dies on the way and shit happens, right? And your wife gives birth. But we gotta dig it out. We gotta find it again because it's covered in chocolate and Netflix and couches and all these climate controlled rooms, right? We gotta dig deep and find it so that we have the stomach to be able to deal with the stuff that goes down when you own a business. The way I do it for the next gen folks out there, the way I do it is when shit happens, and it happens every day. Like nobody gets out alive. Right? It happens every day. I say to myself, well, it could be worse. Could be worse. I could be on that wagon wheel, right? In the 1700s. I could be living in Siberia right now. I could be getting shot out with arrows or whatever, but I'm not. So it's not really that bad. And then when it's really bad, then I say, well, could be worse. I could be dead. Dead's tough, right? It's over. It's final. And so I'm not dead. It's not that bad.
Oh, yeah. Joe, so much of this is resonating because Dylan and I and many on the team who are watching this on the next gen team particularly share this type of mindset and try to remind ourselves that we have to make ourselves uncomfortable, that we do have this lazy tendency, that we got to name the brain. I think that's such a good tip. But sometimes in that vein, I feel like I overdo it sometimes with stretch goals, particularly on our team. And I want to know where the balance falls of when do you overdo it and when do you not? So signing up for a really big race, signing up for a really big goal, putting something huge on the calendar, elf on the shelf with a huge thing, whatever it is. How do you make sure that people who don't share maybe 100% of where we're at right now don't overdo it themselves? Or is that not even a problem to worry about?
Again, if we were to create a chart right now, the three of us, of what normal is, because when you say overdo it, it's relative to what's normal. And so again, if we've been on the planet as a species for 1 million years, 99.9999% of those years, we were living like way outside the normal bubble that we live in today. So when somebody says, oh my God, Joe, you're pushing the employees too hard. You're asking them to come in at 8 a.m. and do a phone. You fucking kidding me? Like, that's not hard. You don't even know what hard is. So I'm probably not the right person to ask. Even my wife thinks everybody thinks I'm nuts, but I check and balance it in my mind and say, like, nuts versus what? Versus this ridiculous, like, fast forward 20 years, nuts is going to be like, you got up at 9 a.m. What? You didn't watch 3 Netflix shows last night. You didn't eat 16 meals today. Like, or you weren't on your phone the entire day in social media. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's gone too far. We've learned helplessness. We're being boiled like frogs in a pot that don't even know we're being boiled, right? And so I would say the quicker you could be abnormal and push the limits, the safer you're going to be. Ultimately. By the way, think about how easy it is to compete today, whether you're a young kid in sports, whether you're in business, whatever, with everybody getting so fat and not just physically, but just as a concept, right? Like, and lazy and with that, like, it's so easy to compete. All you got to do is just do a little bit more. Like, maybe wake up at 8 a.m. Maybe do a 10-minute workout, right? And you're already ahead of half the 75% of the people. So I'm the wrong guy to ask when it says, when have you gone too far? I've gone too far.
Just getting started.
Yeah.
Just getting started. Yeah, that is beautiful.
You don't even want the conversation I've been having all morning around here, trying to get people back in the office.
Different ball game.
Let me tell you something else. I never stopped traveling during COVID. I went around the whole world. I still had stuff to do. I was everywhere. I am so annoyed at myself for not filming that whole experience. I was in Rome. I was at the Colosseum alone. Completely alone. I ran around the Colosseum all morning doing burpees by myself. Okay? So my point is, we can go a little further than we think we can. Everybody just locked themselves up in their homes, right? And I don't want to be irresponsible about COVID or anything. I'm not saying it wasn't a real thing. I'm just saying, like, don't be a sheep. Be a fucking wolf.
Get in the driver's seat, as we like to say.
I got to ask you though, Joe, and I think you are the perfect person for this question. When should we quit? Should we quit ever? Is there a time when that makes sense, when that is the decision?
You guys are sneaky. You seem to know every topic I'm interested in. I like this. So I thought about this for about 30 years, and I finally came to the conclusion that there is a moment when you should quit. But you got to have a PhD. And you got to have a PhD in this stuff because Susie, using the example of my brain that I named Susie, right? Susie is going to try to fake you out. She is going to get you to quit, and she's going to give you the most logical reasons why you should quit. And you got to resist. You got to resist listening to Susie. And instead, what you have to do is you got to lay out a plan before you start that hard thing. And you got to have a purpose before you start that hard thing. And you got to know who you are, what your values are, what your belief system is, really clearly, and lay it all out on paper, so that when Susie has that conversation with you, when you are 200 feet from summiting Everest, and it is 30 below zero, and the winds are terrible, and there's a chance you might die, and you're debating turning around or summiting, rather than talking to Susie, because Susie's explaining everything, and you're like, you will quit 100% of the time if you listen to Susie at that moment. You got to pull out the piece of paper, and you got to say, hang on a second, why am I doing this? Oh, that's right, I'm setting a world record. Oh, that's right, I am not married, I don't have kids. This is my only window to set the world record. I'm going for it. Versus another piece of paper for somebody else that says, I'm a family man. My goal in life is to be the best husband ever. I've got 2 kids at home. I'm not setting a world record. I'm turning around. Right? So you gotta know where you stand in life, who you are, why you're doing this thing. And for me, 15 years of losing money, knock on wood, thankfully, I still had a little bit in the bank after my whole Wall Street thing that if I blew up after those 15 years, I could still feed the family, right? So it was ugly, it was touch and go, it was gonna hurt a lot if it failed, but I could still feed the family. But I got to tell you, Susie was trying to get me to quit for 15 years straight. She did not stop. Susie was even infecting friends and people around me and getting them to talk to me and trying to convince me to quit. My bookkeeper was infected by Susie, and but I had to fight it off.
She can't be trusted. I think that's the message from this all, Joe, is that Susie can't be trusted. And for those who are listening, that means your brain, give it a name. I love that tip. I think that's an amazing tip. Give it a brain. And then as Chris just put in the comments right here, tuning in live, self-confidence. You build it by keeping the promises you make to yourself and not trusting that voice inside your head during the moment. Joe, we're almost out of time. I want to make sure that I ask about COVID and how you're using this mindset now. You mentioned it briefly in your intro. Pre-COVID, I mean, Spartan is on absolute fire. You bought your competitor, growing pretty quickly, and then all of a sudden COVID happens. You have to make hard decisions. You have to lay off people, etc. How are you using this mindset now in COVID? Is there anything new that you have learned in this last period? Has it strengthened some of these core beliefs? Have you updated your mental model at all on some of the things you're thinking about regarding motivation, regarding perseverance? How has COVID provided a new data point for everything that you've been talking about?
And I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of people that are just pissed off at me. Like, look, the virus is real. I saw a bunch of people get sick. We know people that have died from it, but I'm sorry, I'm just not a believer at locking ourselves in a home. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. Not exactly the question you asked, but like, the only way out of this thing is either a vaccine, right? Which, knock on wood, we have, or people have to get it. And so places in the world where we're still shut down, place in Europe, the UK, cost me $2 million last week, two weeks ago. Cost me $2 million, okay? That's an uncomfortable week. I mean, that's a nuclear bomb. That's the horse and wagon falling off the fucking mountain in the Rockies, using that, right? Like, and all because some idiots in Scotland decided to pull the plug like 6 hours before the race was about to happen. But then 10 miles down the road, there's 20,000 people at some other musical event. So I guess my point is, if you put everybody in their home, and we're social creatures, and so now they're socially distanced from everybody, that's unhealthy, and they're drinking because we made sure to make sure everybody had as much alcohol as they want, and they're eating, and we know everybody overstuffs themselves, all of us, me included, but they're not exercising, and they never came in contact with the virus or anything else. Well, then what happens if you don't get everybody vaccinated, which we knew, I mean, anybody with a half a brain would know that not everybody's going to get vaccinated because not everybody believes in it, right? That this thing's going to linger on. And so places like the UK, where I can't get into, we have a business there, or other countries that I'm having a headache in, this thing's just going to linger forever. Are you kidding me? So what did I learn? I learned that we're a bunch of idiots is what I learned. Maybe there's too many Susies. I don't know. That were. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty pissed off about the whole thing, if you can't tell. And yes, I muscled through it, and we worked our asses off during the whole thing, and we produced more content. But was it really that hard? I mean, I saw images of what the Great Depression was like, or World War II was like. You take a look at some of the images in Stalingrad, where the Germans were fighting the Russians. Come on, we were in living rooms with Netflix. Is that hard? Oh, and then if you're out of money, just call up the PPP people. I'm sure you could have done that in 1940. Come on. Anyway, I didn't answer your question well. I'm annoyed about the whole thing. I'm still losing money. I can't get people in the office. They got tangled up in their Netflix wiring in their living room. So here we are.
Joe's out here. He's making sure that you're not lying to yourself. No more BS. You got to be real with yourself. Tell Susie, pause. And Joe's written a few books that outline in a bit. Shout out to Malachi and our team who gave this to me. This is my birthday gift. He knows me well. Spartan up, everybody. That's what Joe's out here telling us what to do. Joe, as we get ready to end the interview, sadly, we're going to get round 2 on the farm soon. Talk to us about what you've got coming out and where folks who are listening and vibing with this can get more Joe De Sena in their life.
Yeah, I mean, you could always send me an email, joe@spartan.com. Just make it short, like 1 or 2 sentences, just because I can't read long emails. I get a lot of emails every day, but I'd love to talk to you. Anybody out there wants to do a race and they don't have the money, happy to just give you a race. It's not about the money for us. It's about changing lives. I got a parenting book coming out. My wife is biting her nails every day about that. Like, what the hell do you know about parenting? You are a crazy person. They're going to put you in handcuffs. By the way, I got yelled at once because you met Charlie. I made Charlie carry a kettlebell like a mile outside. We were like carrying a kettlebell. Literally, a car screeched over. The woman started screaming, "Son, are you okay? Who is he? Is he your lady? I'm his father. It's okay. We're just exercising. I know you haven't seen a child outside in like 10 years, but we're just walking with a kettlebell." So anyway, I got a parenting book coming out. I don't even know what the name of the parenting book is, but if I did, I would tell you, but it's coming out in September. It's going to be good.
We're pumped to check it out. We're pumped to buy the kettlebell phone. We're pumped to stay in the world of Joe De Sena. Joe, thank you so much for joining us. We are super inspired. And you've given us really tactical tips on how to move forward in all of this.
Listen, if anybody wants one, just put it in the email in the subject line.
Kettlebell phone.
I think it's awesome. I don't know what you guys think.
I love it.
I love it. And we're pumped to see it. Next Gen fam, Joe De Sena, thank you so much for joining us on Momentum Audio.
See you guys.
Next Gen fam, this is Joe De Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan, world's leading endurance, sports, and wellness brand. The guy is a beast. The guy is a total beast. I have a lot in the comments who are joining us here. So much to unpack. I don't even know where to begin. We maybe have to save it for a second interview.
We're going to have many a second, third, fourth. This is what I think a lot of us need to hear in your own way, your own unique world. What Joe is basically saying, don't lie to yourself. Like, be your best. No excuse. It's up to you. He's taking complete ownership. He's giving you a few tools to flex that for yourself. He's speaking the lesson that, maybe you didn't ready for a Tuesday morning, but we got you anyways. Right here, Momentum Audio.
Yeah, Joe's electric. Biggest takeaway is that we can't be trusted. We cannot be trusted. Every single morning I get out of bed and I'm like, well, I absolutely do not want to do any of this. It's so hard. We cannot be trusted in that moment. I think the tactical tip of naming your brain is absolutely ingenious. Absolutely love the tip. Next Gen fam, we want to know what you think as always. And we're bringing you much more of this in our Momentum membership coming soon. We're pumped for you to check it out and subscribe and join and be a part of the family. And until then, Next Gen fam, if you don't have your membership, you got to hit us up. But regardless, we hope that you enjoy. We look forward to hanging out with you soon.
Fam, I'll leave you with a question here. We didn't get to ask Joe, but I think we know his answer. What would you do if you knew you were going to fail anyways? That's how he lives his life. So drop a comment, reach out to us. We love you. We appreciate you, fam. We'll catch you right back here next time.